Wake up, buy here, pay here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here, Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hey, everybody.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
And Merry Christmas.
Oh my gosh. It's like Friday Eve.
Yeah.
Eve. Friday Eve.
I don't know. We probably have 3 shopping days till Christmas, including today. Stores will be open Sunday. So
yeah, I mean, it's Christmas Eve.
So a lot of those
hopefully you're not one of
fads.
those, but I have been guilty of last minute stuff in the past. And I mean, I'm not proud of it, but well, actually, why do we get so worked up about it's like this huge medal that people say on September 1st or October 1st, my Christmas shopping is done. It's like we haven't even had Halloween and your Christmas shopping is done.
Yeah.
But then they get to sit back and enjoy the season. So I can see the absolute benefits of that. So
I was shopping by myself the other day, and I must have had so many women looking at me like, oh, look how cute. He's shopping for Christmas by himself. And I turned to a couple of them and I just said, mind your own business. They
didn't say anything. It was just the voices in Jim's head.
Right.
And by the way, we're both feeling a lot better. And so I've kind of been doing a lot of the different shopping things on Amazon. And so Jim's like, I can't go on to Amazon and order anything because you're going to know exactly what it is that I've gotten for you. So it's like, it was an understood thing that he didn't go into Amazon to look at what I had ordered and he didn't get to buy from Amazon.
Yeah.
So
I had to go out physically shopping.
But you know what? Then you got this like, isn't that cute? And then that's a level of appreciation, gratitude,
guess,
whatever.
Yeah.
So just a couple days left and it's going to be, we will be recording for the podcast. The Monday episode is on Christmas Day.
I think you're not going to want to miss that one. You won't probably watch it on Christmas morning, but we would recommend you find time to see that.
If you have not already, a really great place to go and to get like access to all of those is our YouTube channel, Jim Rhoads at Octane.group. There's going to be some shifts to just kind of a pre-announcement in the Octane group as we hit
announcements
as we hit the first of the year.
There's a ton.
There really is.
So we have several things that are initiatives that are coming.
And I'm going to say Karen Barnett, who is our first ambassador. I told her earlier this week that there were a couple things that we were going to be talking about. And I just want to let you know that it's probably going to be pushed until next week. So
you're telling Karen?
Yes, I'm telling Karen. If you're listening to, there were some announcements that we were, that I told her we were going to be announcing this week and we're not ready.
We've got,
we're there. We're almost there.
We've got some that are going to be ready. They were almost ready this morning. And so we had some final edits, but I would say that, look for, tune in these last few episodes of the year here. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. And by the way, the outpouring from that email that I sent yesterday on
those of you who got one, you know what it
most everybody got one. If I missed you, we'll make sure you get it. But it's like, it was the outpouring, the response that I received from that. So many people took time to read that and
write a lengthy response,
reply and send me a message. And just so for those who didn't see it, it's basically on my 60th birthday yesterday, I took a moment to kind of reflect and share my perspective on all the stuff and just, it
was great. It was great.
Oh,
I mean, we got up, we changed all of our meetings so that Jim could have the day. And he's like, I want to write a letter to people in the industry that are our colleagues and all of that. And so that was the work for the day. And those of you who follow social media, the only thing that Jim asked for his birthday, and it was tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
So it was tongue in cheek. So he asked for a marching band.
I said, all I
want is a marching band.
We saw a TV show where they did an over-the-top birthday.
It was actually the morning show on Apple Television.
Is it Apple TV? The one with Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell.
Yeah. And so it was
in that
birthday.
episode, one of those episodes, they did a big thing for his birthday and they brought in a marching band and it was just over the top. Somebody popped out of a cake, that kind of thing. So I just told Michelle after the thing, I said, look, my birthday's coming up. Anything short of a marching band with a drum major is going to be a disappointment. So what you saw in the video yesterday was her.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it just is. I used a garbage can and turned it into a hat, and I was actually, the coat I was wearing was Jim's birthday gift because he, I don't know about you guys that are out there traveling all the time. He had a really nice wool overcoat that got left somewhere. We couldn't figure out where it was at. So he got a new overcoat. So, all right, we should probably talk about the thing that we're here to talk about.
Yeah. And I think for today we can, we set out to talk about WEOs, and I put out the word that we'd love to have some dealers join us, and people just kind of being bashful.
Well, Tyler Simmons did say I would join you, but I think he was thinking Monday. And so, Monday, and I was like, can't be Monday because that's Christmas Day, but
actually Friday, but
we'll take you up on having you on a show.
Oh, for sure. Soon, Tyler, there's tons of stuff coming up. We're going to want you to add to the conversation. So there'll be opportunities, but we just, in the future, I hope when I put that stuff out that people, maybe I'll just start emailing people, but I really want to have dealers speak up. And one of the things we're finding is we're over here bootstrapping our company. It's hard for me to find time to chase down all the potential guests. And
well, it's because it's us.
So
right now,
step forward and let me know that we're just chatting on the morning show. All we're doing is talking about the stuff that you guys talk about all the time. So come join the conversation some.
Absolutely. So the just so you know, I mean, we teased a little bit on Wednesday's show, and because we were talking about how to say no and keep a customer. And this subject of WEOs, which we kind of broadened a little bit and says post-sale repairs. Jim put out a poll on Wednesday about what people do in regards to WEOs and how many people are doing WEOs. And predominantly, I mean, we're not going to show you the numbers, but predominantly it was under 25%.
Yeah, most people said,
and then there were some that said under 5%.
So we have to
and some
explain
that
what
said
the question
none.
was. The question was, what percentage of the time do your WEOs at the time of delivery have some promise after delivery of something of a mechanical nature, not come get your plates
or like tires or something like
tires or post sale. So, that would be
windshield
with
wipers.
WEOs. I typically, so maybe let's first break it down into a WEO would basically address things that we promised at the time of delivery that'll be done after delivery. Okay. And then, so we can also talk today a little bit about after sale repairs, which are really doesn't have anything to do with what was promised on the WEO. It just comes in after, and then you get into this goodwill thing. We won't spend a lot of time there because I'm 90% sure we did a topic on goodwill repairs and some time ago, so people can search that episode and get the details on that one. But for today, I want to talk about WEOs. And the other reason this came up, we're working with a client now who's really looking to put a lid on the spending. It
can be so expensive.
In 2023, they spent a ton of money in goodwill repairs, and they have a short-term warranty, and they're still
not all of
spending.
them were WEOs, but there was a lot also of post-sale repairs.
More of that, actually.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of procedural things and kind of policy and really it's about accountability in their case. And with a lot of dealers, it would be about accountability, about sticking to a practice.
Isn't that something that we talk about all the time? It's like, one, you can't measure what you don't.
Can't manage what you don't.
Can't manage what you don't measure. Two is that you can't hold anybody accountable if you don't have something written.
Yeah.
That's like, this is the internal policy or of what we do. And so, it's a good idea if you're going to change anything or you really want to dial in that you write it down and make sure everyone is trained on it. But
and then I think, there's also the matter when you think about the WEO. So let's think about what happens. Customers on the lot looking at a car and they say, I like that one. I'll buy that one if you put 2 tires on it. Those tires in the back look a little weak. If you put 2 tires on it, I'll buy it. And in the interest of getting the deal done, we do the deal today and they come back next week on an appointment to get the tires done to go to our tire shop, right? So there's that. But the question is not just what goes in the documents, but also sometimes it's what is said to the customer verbally. Like it's time beyond the WEO, you sit down and you sign your warranty documents, your buyer's guide. It's maybe the contract is as is, maybe the contract is with a short-term warranty. But the question is not just what does the customer initial, like what do the documents say, but what does the person who's closing the loan say to the customer verbally beyond what's in the documents? What does the salesperson say on the lot that is outside the documents? Because that complicates the whole process. And so it's one of the first things we'll be doing working with this client is we got to bring that to a stop. We got to find a way to make sure we're making suggestions, but we got to find ways to make sure that the customer hears the same thing. Every customer hears the same thing. And that helps us. If I'm the dealer, it helps me to stand my ground, hold the customer accountable to what was the understanding, because I think part of what we teach in White Hat Ways, we're going to honor what we do, right? We're going to make sure we fulfill what was promised, And so we hope that that's specific and in writing. And then we're going to also ask the customer to fulfill their side of the responsibility. Yeah. So this is kind of everything we would talk about in the context of WEOs and after sale repairs and that whole process, tightening that all up. It's going to all kind of go back to this thing about holding the customer accountable.
Yeah. And your team accountable.
Yeah.
Too. Because it's, the WEO, the post-sale repairs, all of that, that's a pretty big policy.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's a big policy that every dealer should have. And so it's the dealers determine what it is that your policy is and put it in writing, because it's really a dangerous slope if you don't have one and you just kind of let people do what they're going to do. And you have maybe a little bit of a verbal. And how awesome is it when a team member promises something that you're like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And then you've got to either honor something that you don't want to honor, or you've got to backtrack with the salesperson and the customer.
Sure.
And that's a hard place to put yourself.
Yeah. And it's avoidable. Like it's just something that we can address. And I think it can be done at closing. So regardless of what the salesperson might've said on the lot to the customer in the interest of promising to get them in the building, get them signed the contract, whatever, regardless of what promises were made out there as a salesperson, we should be able to undo that at the time of
hopefully you don't have to, because it doesn't look very good when you have to undo
something.
And so
I think so you wanted to address that in the context of what would you say to the customer at the time of closing in order to nullify and undo, just let's get it on the table. If you were promised anything prior to signing this contract in this document, let's talk about it. What were you promised? Well, the salesperson said if I bought this car, I was going to get some new floor mats or a window tint or whatever. Let's talk about that. So it's not in here. So we got to address it now, because it's always my preference that I want to be able to hold the customer accountable to the understanding, because I'm prepared to do my part. I'm going to ask the customer to do their part. And I had a conversation with a client yesterday. You want to read this?
Yeah. Tyler Simmons, implied warranties are a big issue. Regardless of how on point your docs are at signing, it is still going to cost you loads of money to defend yourself in court. Don't let your sales associates oversell the customer on what is documented already. That can be a problem.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of ties into, be very clear about what it is that you will and will not do, and make sure that your salespeople are trained on that. And audit, if you need to audit, and make sure that they're saying, because if you've got people coming up and saying, well, so-and-so said such and such, that is worthy of a conversation.
Yeah. So this, to speak to Tyler's thing, like I think most of what we're talking about here, we can avoid being in court. So Tyler's thinking in terms of, legal protection, that's appropriate.
Absolutely.
It's just, I'm thinking that this is about how to navigate the thing internally very consistently, so that, because I think where we have a problem in court is when we've done it for one and not done it for another. That's just true across collections and all other aspects of our business. So, it starts to look like favoritism, and that can get messy. So we want to be super consistent. We want to hold the customer accountable to whatever the understanding is. And look, we covered a couple of things, that kind of themes that run through all this for me. And we covered it in our conversation, I think on Wednesday. And I know that it's come up with some clients in recent weeks. We got some dealers, by the way, using that buyers and sellers pledge that we introduced weeks ago. And one of the things that form does is it says, it's language I've always toyed with. It's like, we will always honor understandings that are put in writing. If I just stop there and say nothing more, then what is inferred is that I don't necessarily promise to honor anything that's said verbally. So I'm trying to make sure, this is what I talk about with undo. Let's undo whatever might have been said verbally. Let's make sure we're on the same page with the customer at the time we sign the agreement, because I think it goes back to the whole white hat thing about good fences. It's like, when we have good fences and a clear understanding when we start, then we can maintain a long relationship.
We honor and we repair that fence.
What is the promise?
Yeah,
what is the premise of the good fence thing? Keep in mind, I grew up in, farm country. I grew up on a little ranch, and we had neighbors across a barbed wire fence. And so, when you have a clear boundary and you have a clear understanding, then, as long as people honor those boundaries and fulfill, what was the understanding, people get along just great for the longest time. It's when those boundaries start to get fuzzy and people start to encroach, that it starts to get to be a problem. So this fits with the conversation I was having with a client just this week about how they have an exorbitant amount of after sale repairs, and they have a short-term warranty. So some of those things are going to be covered under warranty. But it's like in working through that with them and talking about how do you solve that? How do you fix that?
Well, I got two things, but yeah.
Sure.
If you've got an exorbitant amount of after sale repairs, how well are your cars being reconditioned?
Well, that's especially if that's happening early, right?
Yeah,
if you're having that come up in the first, because
if it's a year later, that is a different conversation to have internally. But
and so there's two pieces I want to get back to. One is the other thread that lies under this is this idea across customer service in other industries. We all have heard this thing about the customer's always right. Customer's always right. So we have to be super specific about how it's not in the approach that we're recommending that we're going to have customers end up unhappy, at least not for very long. They could be unhappy. They're always going to be unhappy when somebody tells them what they don't want to hear.
Well, and you rephrase it, because if you just like face value say the customer's always right, I have to do what the customer wants, it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Expensive.
But I love how Jim has rephrased that is the customer's reality is your reality. I mean, it's like what the customer thinks, the perception
what
is your reality.
And
so that changes what it is that we have to address is their perception and not, and yeah.
And how we handle this when you're an
right.
established business is tricky. Like one of the ways that I've always done this, and we got this client that we're working with has hundreds of accounts already. And so the approach for me is always, look, let's close this. Let's stop this bleeding first, which is any new deliveries we do after a certain date. We're going to have those. They'll have the language the way we want it. We're going to be very consistent. We're going to handle them the same way after delivery. So regardless of what's written on the WEO, then you refer to what's on the buyer's guide, what's in any kind of warranty. We're going to honor that. We're going to stick to that. We're going to emphasize that with the customer. And then we just have to be careful. Then we have to be prepared to commit to this idea. So again, all contracts going forward is we're going to hand them all the same way. And we're not going to do for one customer what we wouldn't do for every customer. And now that means you can have some customers unhappy for a little bit. I mean, when I tell them, unfortunately, that's out of warranty. Your warranty expired 2 weeks ago. And so this is going to be your financial responsibility, as we talked about. Doesn't mean we won't help you. So this is an important thing to say. And so it gets wrapped into the whole thing. And so I stop there. I don't say how we're help them, because actually the remedies might vary on a case by case basis.
Dealers are all different. Yeah.
Well, and the customer status is different. Like in other words, what they're eligible for might vary.
Well, and what the dealer offers. I mean, some places it's a as is. And so you deal with, are you holding firm to your as is? And some of them have warranties and service contracts and things like that they can lean into when it's something that's not just, shortly after delivery. But
and I think another way that I would try to assert the language, and if I were training and working with a new dealer, which we got a brand new dealer starting soon, and we're working with this dealer that's well established. And I think the way I would say this, and I would replace the phrase, the customer's always right, with something along the line of the customer is always financially responsible for those things that I did not take responsibility for in writing. The end. The customer is always financially responsible for those things that I did not promise in writing to fulfill in the agreement. So that's the way it should be, right? And so I want many of you, as you hear that, say, "Oh, but Jim, like you got to ask yourself, how much of that is you as the dealer making an exception and breaking practices? And when you start making those exceptions, what's the basis? Why would you agree to make an exception for this one customer? Because they're a little more unhappy? I mean, so that doesn't that create a precedent where the more I stomp around and the more noise I make, the more help I'm going to get. That's not a pattern, a precedent that we want to create in our business. And so we have to be able to draw that line and make sure that, so keep in mind, everything I'm suggesting here does not mean we're going to end up with a bunch of unhappy customers. I did tell my client the other day, it's got hundreds of accounts. So when we implement this policy at the 1st of January, you're going to limit your after sale repairs. You may see a few more charge-offs, but we're going to get a lid on this.
And when you have habitually had a practice of that, it will take some retraining of your team and the customer.
And all the practices that I'm recommending too, everything that we try to implement, we are never asking a customer to do something unreasonable.
And if you really want to, it's like, I want to be able to support the customer through this entire contract.
We can and should.
Then we have things that we can put into place that will help with that don't make it your personal financial responsibility as a dealer to do it. But there are safeguards and safety nets. There's a lot of products out there that can help you support them. And I know we really encourage dealers to have those kind of products. If you plan on supporting, then have the products. If you're a as is, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're obviously not going to have
faced with side notes, and I'm not 100% sure on this. Like we try not to be attorneys out here, and we don't know the UCC stuff across the country. But I would say that I'm not sure every state can do side notes, side loans. I know that some states are not allowed. Most states are not allowed to charge interest on side notes. Okay, so there's all this stuff to figure out. Exactly how you would support the customer can vary in your state and in your own practices. But I would just first say, let's make sure we get super consistent in those practices, and that we can show that we don't do it for one if we're not prepared to do it for everybody, and we can ultimately make the customer happy. Okay, so we have ways to solve the customer's problem and get them back on the road. That's not what we're saying. But the question is, how do we do that? And do I pay for it? Do I, as a dealer, accept financial responsibility for it? And if so, why? If we're doing it in this context of customer service, it just scares me. And I'm not an attorney, but as a former business owner, current business owner, I think I like good fences. Why would I make an exception and because I know people try to make this idea, well, I want to see the customer happy and I want to have good things to say about it. Okay, yeah, but where does that end? You did it today, and you're going to have them sign a little goodwill thing, and it's a one-time thing. Is it really a one-time thing? Will you do it again in 2 months if the customer has a different problem? It's like, you just sort of nullify the stuff. And so I think this is why I like clear boundaries. I like to see the customer held accountable to what is their responsibility. And again, doesn't mean we won't help and support them in plenty of ways. Lots of ways. We can give payment relief. We can help them save money on parts. We can help save money on labor. There's all kinds of ways we can help. But it's like, the point is, all those things that are today we're to talk about WEOs, and we'll come back and talk specifically about the WEO document and at the point of closing. But I think all of these conversations have to be anchored in this idea: are we going to hold the customer accountable or not? And so that's really what makes it difficult. And I'm just going to tell you, we can solve a lot of this by just making a decision to hold the customer accountable to what is theirs. We will quickly fulfill what is our responsibility, right? That's what we do. So especially as a white hat dealer, we're going to quickly fulfill what we promised to do. And we're going to ask the customer to do the same thing. And so this is kind of where I'm coming from. So back to WEO. So the WEO document, for those not familiar, is just basically a document that's included in most every sales bundle, retail deal, buy here, pay here deal. And it basically says, if you're promised anything after delivery, it should be listed on this document. In a simple way to think about it. It's like, if there's anything that we owe you after delivery, it should be right here. So if I promised to get you a free oil change in a month, or if I promised you free tire rotation, that's not in the other documents, then it goes on the WEO. And so, and I've told the story plenty of times. The very first buy here, pay here deal I did as a manager, went off to training, came back and was managing the store, and had customers coming in shopping. And the very first customer that came up was buying an old minivan. And he said, I would buy that van if you would get the windows tinted. And keep in mind, I worked for like 2.5 years in the retail franchise world before stepping on the Buy Here Pay Here lot.
Different world. Yeah.
And I came out of my mouth when he said, get the windows down. I said, sure, we do that. And I probably hadn't even written the WEO yet. And I'm like, why did I do that? What? I could have just adjusted. I could have adjusted the price. I could have adjusted the down payment. Let them go handle it themselves.
I would say that it's because the mentality in regular retail is you get the sale, you get people happy and on their way and on their way and on their way. And that, when you sell something regular retail, you don't, when someone, it's a very different relationship. The loan is not with you. The loan is with the bank.
Sure.
And so it's just a very different kind of relationship. And usually the salespeople are commissioned based on how many they close and da 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 da. And so it's like, do what you need to do to close the sale. Say what, that kind of thing.
That's kind of the sales mentality. I think this is,
it's different.
I always remember years ago in South Texas, I was with a dealer and I said, there's some inherent problems between having the sales department and the collection department separated, right? When you have they're separate departments, like there's some inherent problems. He looked at me like, boy, that's an understatement. It's like, there's some problems there. So salespeople are salespeople and they want to promise to get the deal done and probably they have a commission writing on it, whatever. So I think this is why these documents become so critical. And I just think we have an opportunity when we close these deals to put a lid on a lot of this stuff. And so the way we do it is exactly those things we're talking about. So let me also offer this, because I know we would have talked about this in the past, but I know not everybody sees every episode and I'm not even sure where to tell them to find the thing we talked about before. But this idea that when we write a WEO, I would just ask, because we also hear a lot of dealers talk about how behind they are in their service department. Okay. So here's an opportunity to not bring service work back into your own building. Okay. So let's break this one down pretty carefully, because I did this very successfully in my career. I mean, I almost never had anything on a WEO document. Why? Because I made sure it was done before the car was ever delivered.
So that was in recon.
And so I always challenge my dealers that are new. Let's try to set up our business in a way that every single WEO can say nothing promised after delivery. So how would you do that? Well, one, you would make sure your cars were well conditioned before they went on the lot, that they were ready and you'd gone as far as you're going to go. Then if a customer says, look, I would buy that car if you would put a new battery in it, that battery cables look a little corroded or whatever, the terminal's a little corroded. So if you just put a new battery in it, I would buy it. So tell you what I'll do. What if we just adjusted, battery's going to run you $100, $150. What if I just adjusted from the selling price of the car, $150, and you just arrange the battery? The battery's fine, starting the car now. If you want to just arrange a battery at your convenience, you can go buy a battery at your convenience. I'll adjust it from the price. Oh, no, I don't have the cash. Well, okay. What if I adjust it from your down payment? $150. And we'll just, instead of you doing $1,000, we'll do $850 today.
What a much less expensive way.
Well, and it doesn't tie up my service department.
Yeah, it doesn't tie up your service department.
The customer can get that battery done at their own convenience at the shop of their choosing, and I'm done. Like my part is fulfilled. I don't have anything in my service department that's keeping me from reconditioning my cars that are, coming to the lot. And so I'm unencumbered. I'm not tethered. And I don't have that customer coming in for an appointment. And then I don't have the customer sitting back there unhappy because what should have taken 45 minutes to do a battery, they're still there after 2 hours. Cause it's just, why would I bring that on myself? And so it's like, that's a way that we can start to with a WEO. I would just challenge all my dealers to just say, what would it take for you to make sure every WEO said nothing promised after delivery? And so when we do that, then if you can get there, and you can, because alternatively you could help that customer choose another car that doesn't have corroded terminals.
Well, and it's an interesting thing that you talk about is like taking it off the down payment. That if you're someone that has done WEOs an awful lot in the past, that's a cheaper way in time and resources to be able to get the customer taken care of. And because it's going to come, if you're someone that fixes everything, it's going to come out of your pocket anyway. That's really my point. Yeah. So it's and maybe it's a little cheaper for me to do the battery or whatever, but I think we're missing the point if we think that way, because I might be costing myself a few bucks by adjusting the down payment $150, but I'm also saving myself a whole lot of headaches. What's it worth to not have that customer sitting in your service department
waiting for that battery install. Of course, some of us want to introduce the customers to our service department. And I'm simply saying there's plenty of opportunity for that.
Mm-hmm.
That customer will be back in 3 months with something else. Is like, but this is an area where we sometimes bring work on ourselves that is avoidable. And I think this is why I just say, I would challenge dealers to just make them all say nothing promised.
Well, and I it's just something that came into my mind about, let's take it off the down payment, is that it really does help the salespeople be cognizant and aware of what it is that they are promising, or what it is that they're doing, because with a lot of dealers, commissions are based on down payment. And so it's like, you can take it out of the down payment, guys, kind of thing. You can take it out of the down payment if you feel like it needs to, and it's what's going to close the thing. Take it out of the down payment, and it'll place the burden on the salespeople to not overpromise. And then not cost the dealership a lot of money in the process.
And I think I would first, I don't know if you picked up, I first offered to take it off of the selling price, because that way we were able to hold the full down payment, which helps us from a cash standpoint. I would always offer to take it off the selling price first. And I would say, based on my own experience, probably 2/3 of the time taking it off of the selling price was suitable for the customer, and you just reduce the price and you make a note. Like, if I did that, I would write, because we get ourselves in trouble by discounting in a buy here, pay here environment. So if we just were very specific on the buyer's order, there's a $150 price adjustment, customer buying their own battery. Okay. And so it explains why we did the adjustment, and it solves the thing about the bottleneck in our service department for next week when the customer's trying to get an appointment and come back in. And so this is where we can solve headaches. This is where we can tie up things in a nice little bow, before when the customer takes delivery. And I think, again, I think you'll find none of us really want to take it out of the down payment. We'd rather have the full down payment, but if you have to, I would ask you, isn't it the same money? You're going to keep the $150 from the customer, and then you're going to spend $150 for a battery in your service department, and you're going to have all that time tied up. And so I would just say, let's look at that and try not to get ourselves tied up in all that. And again, we know the outcome can be customers still be happy. And again, we understand that probably at the time that we're telling them no, because their warranty expired, they're unhappy for a bit. And we're going to have to get better at having those conversations and helping the customer kind of get past that. But at the end, aren't we really just asking them to do something reasonable? We're asking them to do what was agreed. That's all we're doing. We're asking them to do what was agreed. And if we can't get better at having those conversations, then we're going to have a lot of after sale repairs.
Absolutely.
And so I think this is where we want to try to start to solve some of that. But
if there's anything that we can help you with, there's 2 ways to get in touch with Jim. And this is like direct. One of is jim@whitehatway.com, and which is kind of like a little introduction teaser for where we're going with Octane and all of that. And then the other one is you can call or text at 903-816-0216 if there's something that we can help you with, or like put you on the right path of where to go. Feel free to give us, when I say us, they're reaching out to Jim directly.
But if they ask a question I can't answer, I'll forward it to you. So.
Oh, okay. Because that works.
Because everybody knows you're the smart one around here.
No, I'm just the one that handles the board.
Oh,
when we're doing podcasts. So, all right, everybody.
Folks.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Enjoy your Christmas Eve
and
on
your
Sunday,
holiday, and those of you who are observing Hanukkah and solstice and it's like there's all sorts of stuff.
Look for that pre-recorded episode on Monday, and again we understand you probably won't see it on Monday morning, but you're going to want to find this one. It's pretty important stuff.
Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, y'all.
And then we will see you live on Wednesday.
Yep.
Actually.